gata sangasya muktasya jnanavastita chetasa yajnaya charata karma samagram praviliyate. He says that, when you are free from your attachment, that is the way, that is the only way by which you can, when you are free from all attachments, that is the way by which you can get, that is the way by which you can get steadfast in the knowledge. And the karmas that you do, the karmas that you perform in your day-to-day life, these karmas should be performed as if they are all yajna, that is, this Vedic sacrifice, where everything is done only for the benefit of others, for the cause of others. It's not done anything to, fulfill my own needs or fulfill my own aspirations. Yajna means, it's something which is done only for the Lord, only for God, or for humanity. So he said that this karma should be performed as if they are all yajnas, and by this you will never incur, any sin. You will be free from all sins. So this is what we this is where we had ended. Now, when he talks about yajna, now he makes a little bit of, he explains this yajna, how this yajna is so important in our spiritual life, or how this yajna can be beneficial in understanding, that in understanding the spiritual process, or the contemplation that we make, how this, this concept of yajna can be important. So now in the next verse he says, Brahmarpanang Brahma, Havir Brahmagno Brahmana Hutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. He says that, Brahmarpanang Brahma, that is, whatever is done in the yajna, whatever is performed, whatever action is performed in while performing actions, while performing yajna, it's only the self which is doing for the self. There's no other agent. So there's no other agentship which is involved. It's only the self which is, which is doing everything for the self. Now, Havir Brahmagno, that is, the fire. The fire also is Brahman. So the person who is performing this yajna is Brahman. The perform for which this yajna is performed is Brahman. The fire is Brahman. Brahmana Hutam, and whatever you offer, like, this herbal medicines, this Ayurvedic medicines, Ayurvedic, herbs, and all kinds of sweet fruits, whatever, ghee, whatever you perform, whatever you offer to the Lord, these materials, these materials also is Brahman. So the person who is performing yajna is Brahman. The person for whom this yajna is performed is Brahman. The fire through which this yajna is performed is Brahman, and all the offerings which are made in this yajna is Brahman. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, Brahma karma samadhina, and everything is going to that Brahman itself. So there is, and Brahma karma samadhina, and this whole process of yajna is being completed, or is being accomplished only in the Brahman. So there is nothing without Brahman. So by saying this, Krishna is trying to elaborate, explain that, this world where you see so many, different things, variety of name, variety of form, variety of, articles, variety of, this world is full of varieties. So though they look different, though they appear different, though they have different properties, though they have different, attributes, but everything is Brahman, everything is meant for Brahman, and everything is originating, sustaining, and you know and like and and the culminating point also is Brahman. So everything is Brahman. Okay, so there is nothing without Brahman. So this is the essence of all knowledge. When we start our journey, we start our journey knowing that I am not Brahman. I am a individual soul. I am a Jivatma. I am an individual soul. I am separate from the absolute. And then I start my journey. I start my journey by going to my guru. My guru gives a mantra. My guru gives a practice. And I practice that. And while I practice that, then slowly, I develop this perception of the Brahman. And at one time, through the process of samadhi, through the state of samadhi, I realize that I am that Brahman. So when I realize that I am that Brahman, then I see that when I have not realized that I am Brahman, when I used to think myself to be separate from Brahman, when I used to think myself to be an individual soul, then also I was that Brahman. And everything that I see around me, which I thought is different from me, which I thought is distinct in property, in appearance, in everything, these are, though they appear to be distinct, but they are not distinct. They're all the same. They're all the same. They're all my own nature. And, these have never changed. They're the same, always. So, there's only one, and that is the Brahman or the self. Okay? So, this is what he wanted to explain. Now, he is saying that Daivameva pare yagya yogino paryupasate Brahmagnava pare yagyam yagya naiva pajuvati. And there are other people who don't aspire for this knowledge of the self. They want to accomplish worldly happiness. They want to accomplish happiness, in the other worlds. And they also do yagyas which are meant for that. Even while they are doing this, while they're doing this, while they're doing this, having the concept of another world, or having the concept of, of them being separate from Brahman, whatever they're doing, they're all doing it by this process of yagya. And ultimately they are going to realize that, there is nothing separate. Everything is the self. So, Daivameva pare yagyam yogino paryupasate Brahmagnava pare yagyam yagya naiva pajuvati. And the one who wants to know the Brahman, they also perform this yagya. They also perform this yagya. How? They perform this yagya through knowledge, through knowing. And while they perform this yagya, they also know the Brahman. So everything which is accomplished, either it is self-knowledge, or it is the happiness, it's worldly happiness, or the happiness of the other worlds, everything is happening through the process of yagya, that is karma. So here, everywhere karma is needed and effort is needed. And while you reach to the summit, then you realize that there is only one, there is no two, there's only one. And everything that I've seen is also that one. Now, it's very important to understand this particular verse, which he says, which is very important for the spiritual aspirants. He says, Shrotradin Indriya Nyanne Sangjamagni Shujjuvati. Now, a person who is a aspirant, he also needs to to perform yajna. How will he perform yajna? Because it is yajna by which we can attain the self. When we talk about yajna, so everything is yajna. So because everything is yajna, then this pursuit of knowledge also is yajna. Now, how can a person who is who is dedicated to this pursuit of knowledge, how can he perform yajna? He says, Srotradin Indriyanyanne Agni Sangyamagni Shujuvati. In case of yajna, what happens? There is a fire, and everybody has to, offer substances into the fire, whether it is fruits, whether it's milk, whether it's ghee, whether it's flowers, whether it's Ayurvedic herbs, to satisfy the Lord. So here, how and by this process of the satisfaction of the Lord, we attain our our aspirations. So how can a self-realized aspirant, how can an aspirant who is aspiring for self-realization, how can he perform yajna? He says, Srotradin Indriyanyanne Sotradin Indriyanyanne Sangjamagni Shujovati. Sangyam. Sangyam means restrain. So restrain is the fire. Restrain, to stop, to hold, to control. So this control is the fire. And what should I control? Srotradin Indriyanyanne means I have five senses. I have five senses: ears, eyes, tongue, skin, and nose. So these five senses has to be restrained. So I have to, offer these five senses into the fire of restraint, into the fire of self-control. So this is how I can perform yajna. This is how a person who is aspiring for self-knowledge perform yajna. That he has to, offer these five senses into the fire of restraint, into the fire of rejection, into the fire of rejection, into the fire of control. And Shabdadin Vishayannanne Indriyagni Shujuvati. And Shabdadin, that is this these five sense objects. Five sense objects, like we have said, one is form, the other is sound, smell, taste, and touch. So these form, sound, smell, taste, and touch, what happens? These are the sense objects, but they come inside our system through the senses, into the mind, into the intellect, into the ego, and creates ripples. And while they create these ripples, these ripples are the creation of worlds, are the creation of different kind of attachments, different kind of desires. And these desires, at one point they become so strong that we have to run after those desires. And thus we create our own world. So these sense objects, though they are outside us, like form is not a part of us, it's outside. It is something which we perceive through our senses. So it's separate from us. Sound also is separate from us. Smell is separate from us. We don't have a direct connection with them. The only connection which we can make with them is through the senses. But there is no way that we can stop these sense objects into the senses. The sense objects, they penetrate the senses and they come inside our mind and creates ripples and creates different kind of desires. And with these desires, we run after those desires, and this is how we create our karmas, we create our bondages. So here it says, Shabdadin Indriyanyanne Shabdadin Vishayanyanne indriyagnishu juvati. Now here, indriya, that is the senses are the fire. The five senses are the fire. And the sense objects has to be, offered to the senses in such a way that it enters the senses and it burns. It does not penetrate into our mind. It does not penetrate into our antakarana, this mind pool. It cannot enter into that antakarana, into this mind pool, and create desires. So they have to be offered into the senses in such a way that the senses can burn them. So when can the senses become a fire? The senses that we have, they can only become fire when we offer the senses to the fire of restraint. Okay, did you understand? So beautiful, so technical. First of all, you offer your senses into the fire of restraint. The first thing is restraint is the power, is the fire. So when I offer my senses into that restraint, then what happens? My senses also turns into fire. And when they turn into fire, unto that fire, put all this, offer all the sense objects, so that they go there and they are also burned, so that they cannot, enter into our mind stuff. They cannot enter into the pool of our mind and create desires and bind us into those desires, make us distracted. And in this way, remaining in this world, doing everything, we will see that we are all free. It's a very, very simple process. If you can practice this, and that is why this 26th verse of Bhagavad Gita is one of the very revolutionary verses in the entire Bhagavad Gita. And if you see, people does not talk about it too much, because most of us don't understand what does it say. Most of us don't understand. We just read it. But see, it's so technical, it's so beautifully, it's so beautifully explained. It's so beautifully explained. What did it say? It said that, our senses has to be offered to the fire of restraint. Now, when we offer anything to the fire, what happens? The fire transforms those into fire. Nothing can retain their individuality when we offer them into fire. And that is why fire is the most purest thing in this world. And that is why the Hindus, they offer their dead bodies into fire, so that everything is transformed into fire and everything is burnt. Everything is the fire can just absorb everything. Okay, so here it says, because the fire is the most purest thing, because it can transform everything into fire. Nothing, no one can retain their individuality while they come in contact with the fire. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to offer our senses into the fire and transform our senses into fire. And when the senses has become fire, when they're glowing like fire, they're burning like fire, then offer all the sense objects, form, sound, taste, smell, and touch. Now, when they say, form, sound, taste, smell, touch, how can we offer them into that fire? It is the attachment with the form which has to be offered into the fire of senses. It is the attachment to the sound, which has to be, offered into the fire of senses. It is the attachment to the smell. It is the attachment to the touch. It is the attachment to the taste, which has to be offered into the fire of senses. Again, that this form is true. This perception of this perception of truth in the form is also to be, is also to be offered into the fire of senses. How does a form affect us? How does a form enter into our mind and affect us in such a way, in such an intensity that they can create their own desires, and at one point we follow those desires? How is it possible? It is only possible because we have this utmost perception that these forms are true. So when Krishna says that offer these sense objects into the fire of senses, it also means that offer your own perception that this form is true into the fire of senses. They are not true. Offer this offer this fire of this one. Then offer this perception of truth in the sound into the senses. So in this way, when you offer everything, then you see that you are free, that these sense objects, they cannot affect you at all. While you dwell into this world, perform all your duties, live your own life, do everything that you need to do, you see that you are always free. And this is how a very complete life, a perfect life, a spiritual life, a peaceful and calm life, a life full of love, a life full of joy can be accomplished, because there is no attachment at all. There's no attachment at all. There's no bondage at all. Nothing is binding me. I'm free. Okay? So this is very important. Srotradin Vishanyane Sanjamagnishu Juvati. Shabdadin Srotradin Indriyanyane Sanjamagnishu Juvati. Shabdadin Vishanyane Indriyagnishu Juvati. It's very, very important words. And I'm sure that it's going to help you immensely. It also has helped me immensely. I want to have some comments. Did you understand this one? Any question? Because this is really very, very important, verses in the entire Bhagavad Gita, Any comment?
I love it. I just want to go and do yagna, I just want to sit there and just throw everything on it.
And Shelly, I want to tell you something. While I was thinking about today's class, I was like perplexed. How am I going to say all these things? Because I don't know exactly, how to, and it just came out in this way.
It was exquisite, Swamiji.
Yeah, it's true. There is something. There is some hand of God which works while I am speaking to you guys.
Yes, definitely.
Kind of, I can feel that also.
Oh no, it's spectacular. Now Leslie is very new to yoga and things like yagna and what have you, so she probably wants to hear from you explanation. Is that right, Leslie? What would you like to hear, darling? Come on.
The form. What's form?
Oh,
form is this, when I see you as a body. This is a form. The external appearance of everything is form. Like, you are the self, but I don't see you as a self. I see you as a body, your external appearance. So, this is the form. And also my perception that this form is true is also form. Is the bondage with the form. This creates this attachment with the form. This creates bondage. This is where the delusion starts. The form is not an agent of delusion. The form is not the cause of delusion. Or the sound, or the taste, or the smell. These are not, they are not the cause of delusion. My perception that this is true is the cause of delusion. Okay? So can we go into the next one? Any question, any question, any thought, any comments about this?
Leslie, you're good? Yeah. Okay.
It was just that little bit.
Yeah, and what he's talking about is what we would call Maya Mala or Anavamala.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, the next one. Sarvani Indriya Sarvanindriya Karmani Pran Karmani Chapare Atma Sangyam Yogagno Juvati Jnana Deepite. Now it starts from the very, it starts from the physical form to the astral or the divine form. How can we start from the physical form and reach into the state of divine? Okay, so it says Sarvani Indriya Karmani Prana Karmani Chapare. There is something called prana, the life force. Okay, like we breathe in and we breathe out. So this is called the life force. This is prana. So there are 5 pranas. There are 5 pranas or life forces or the 5 kind of wind, or 5 kind of forces which acts in the entire body, by which this body is regulated. This body is by which this body is kept working active. So this breathe in. I'm breathing in. So this breathing in is called apana. This is called the apana. This is one kind of prana, of the one among the 5. This breathing in is apana. Breathing out. Rinki phone kar raha hai. Breathing out. Breathing out is called prana. Breathing in is apana and breathing out is called prana. Now, when I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out, so there is another prana or another air which acts as a balance between these two pranas. That is called samana. Like I am breathing in and then I am breathing out. So they're 2 separate, there's 2 separate objects, or there are 2 separate elements. Okay, one is apana and one is prana. Now there is one thing called saman, which joins these 2 and creates this balance between breathing in and breathing out. So the balance that we experience while we are in this process of respiration is because of this 3 kind of wind, the 3 kind of wind or 3 kind of forces or 3 kind of pranas. One is apana, then samana, and the third is prana. That is breathing in, then it goes through another force which is called saman, and then we breathe out in the form of pran. So there are 3 constituents. And then I'm eating, I'm swallowing, I'm chewing something, and after chewing I swallow. So after I swallow, then I don't know what happens. I think that it just goes inside my stomach, but it doesn't go inside my stomach on its own. It goes through a process. It goes through a process, and that process is called peristaltic movement. It goes slowly inside. It passes through this esophagus and it goes into the stomach. The food goes into the stomach, but the force which is there, the wind which is there, which is helping this food to go, to travel from from the mouth to the stomach, is called Jyana. Jnana. Because of that force, our food can travel from the mouth to the stomach. So that is the 4th form of prana, which is called Jnana. And from the stomach, what happens? From the stomach, it gets digested. We take everything, important from the food. Our body absorbs all the nutritions, all the vitamins, everything. And then, whatever is left, whatever is, unnecessary, the body flushes out of the system. So how is it possible? It is only possible because of another kind of prana, another kind of force, by which whatever is not needed in the body is flushed out. And that is called udana. So that is the fifth, that is the fifth form of prana. So we have five. One is prana, one is apana, samana, prana, udana, and vyana. So he says that whatever work you are doing, sarvani indriya karmani, every work that you are doing through the senses, we have 10 senses, 5 sense of perception and 5 sense of action. Okay, so whatever we are performing, this 5 through our 10 senses, what happens? They are all getting transformed into prana. Whatever work or whatever actions we are performing through the senses, these senses, after performing, they are all getting transformed into, they are all getting offered into that prana. Sarvani indriya karmani prana karmani chapare. Everything that the senses does, they are all offering everything to the prana. Okay, then what happens? This prana is the life force. Is the life force. It's making our life possible. It's making our body move. It's making it's keeping us alive. So now what happened is this: if you really want to attain the ultimate accomplishment, if you really want to attain that state of universal consciousness, what you need to do is, this prana is actually, this prana force is actually working in this world. So it's directing you towards this world. It's taking you towards this world. All this, this I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, I'm eating, everything is happening. These forces are only working, to keep me into this world. Now, I have to realize myself. I have to know the knowledge which is beyond this world. So if I have to know that existence which is beyond this world, I need to travel from this world to another world. Now, how can I travel to that world when the entire force that I have is making me, stay put into this external world, into this, world of senses, into the sensual world or this material world? How can I go into that world? The only way by which I can go into that world is by restraining this force of prana. When I restrain this force of prana, when I control this prana, then only I have that capacity, I have that power by which I can just, move free from this world into the next, into the, world beyond. And this restraining of prana force is called pranayama. We know about pranayama. What is pranayama? Pranayama is only when we can restrain, control our sense, our prana. By controlling this prana, that is the only way by which we can go beyond this. We know about this 8 limbs of yoga. That is Ashtanga yoga, isn't it? Have you heard about this Ashtanga yoga, Patanjali Ashtanga yoga? So there's yoga which is, it's called Patanjali Ashtanga yoga. So it starts like this, there are 8 limbs of yoga. By following these 8 limbs, you can reach into the state of super consciousness. How? It starts with yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, then pratyahar, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So, we as the aspirant of Jnana yoga, we start from here: dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. We go to the guru, we go to the master. The master tells us about the self, about the existence of the self, which is not the body, which is not the mind, which is not the intellect, which is not the ego. There's another, existence of another, the existence of another self, which is beyond all this. So while he speaks to us, then slowly we start to have this perception of that self. So that is called dharana. We develop the perception of the self. From there, what happens when we develop the perception of the self? We start to, settle into that. We start to settle into that perception. We start to settle into that perception. We start to flow with that perception. That this body, this mind, this intellect, this ego, these are not true. There's another one which is beyond this. So we start to settle into this perception. This process is called, when we start to flow with this perception, it's called Jyana, that is meditation. And when we start to flow with this perception, when we are in this process of meditation, this process takes us to the last and the ultimate state, which is called Turiya or Samadhi, where we become one with that self, which is beyond this. The one which we have been contemplating, we become one with that. We come face to face with that. And that state is called Samadhi or Turiya or Kaivalya. In yoga, it's called Kaivalya. So all are the same, or liberation or mukti, moksha. These are all the same. So, this is so pranayama means while a person who approaches the self through the process of yoga, they start by restraining their prana. And while they start to restrain their prana, then only they start to get the insight of the world beyond. Because this prana will always take you towards this world. So when you restrain this prana, then you start to get the glimpse of the world beyond. Okay, so here it says Atma Sangyama Yogagno Juvati Jnana Deepite. While you can restrain yourself, while you can restrain your mind, the way you restrain the prana, in the same way, when you can restrain your mind, when you can restrain your ego, when you can restrain your intellect, when you can restrain your senses, when you can restrain your senses, then only it is possible for you to go beyond the self. Okay, Milana mera class niche tu ekna hai. So this is the thing. Okay, now it says, did you understand this? Any question about this? Any question?
Just cut out a little bit, so I missed a little bit of the
I'm
ending
using
of
my
that.
phone internet, so the phone keeps coming and I get cut. So yes, where did you not hear?
Well, there's Samadhi is one with the self, and it was just a little bit after that. So I just missed a bit after that.
So Samadhi means the state in which you become one with the super consciousness or with the self. That is called Samadhi. So this is this is what you have been hearing. This this self is what you have been hearing from the Guru. So when you develop this perception and you flow with that perception, then you reach this state of Samadhi. This Samadhi is also known as yoga. This Samadhi is also known as Kaivalya in terms of yoga, Kaivalya or Turiya or Turjaga. These are various names of this Samadhi. All are the same. When I become one with the divine, when I become one with that supreme or the absolute consciousness, and realize that I am that absolute consciousness. Samadhi is not only becoming one with that absolute consciousness. Samadhi is also to have a complete knowledge or realization or intuition that yes, I am this. What my Guru has said, I know that this is the truth. In Samadhi, all the teachings that I receive from the Guru is confirmed, is validated. Okay, so this is called samadhi. Now, any question about it?
Anyone else got a question? Kashi? Kashi hasn't got a question.
Kashi has a question.
She's just purring. She's just going A1, Swamiji.
Okay, so now let's go to the next one. Okay,
Huh.
so it says drabba yagyas tathopa yagya yoga yagyas tatha pare. Now these are very element. You know, this doesn't have any that much of importance. Drabba yagyas tathopa. You know, a person who is a completely material person, who is a very, you know, like is a very like material person who has this perception that this world is true. He also performs yagya, but that yagya is called drabba yagya. That is, you know, that is the yagya which, you know, if you have, you know, when you come to Varanasi, you will see people, you know, doing this yagya in the banks of Ganga, you know, or if you go into any pilgrim, you know, any pilgrimage, then you will see people doing charity, people doing some kind of, you know, religious activity. So these are called drabba yagya, things which you do with drabya. Drabya means matter, material, with money, with food, with, you know, with clothes, with your with your body. So these are called, so drabba yagyas tathopa yagya, the very you know, elementary yagya, very primary kind of yagya is called drabba yagya. People are taught to do this drabba yagya only to have this perception that, you know, that only to have this perception that these yagyas are important. So while they start doing it, then they can go into the higher states of yagya. Okay, so drabba yagyas, the very, you know, when people you know, do some kind of yagya while coming to the pilgrimages, you know, like they come to Kashi, they come to Varanasi, and they do some kind of yagya in the Ganga river. You know, do you remember when we went to Sangam? There were these priests, you know, who were forcing us to do some kind of, you know, hey, do this, do this. Those are all called drabba yagya. Very like elementary yagya. Okay, that one. Then yoga yagyas tatha pare. Next one is yoga yagya. That is, you know, the next one is that yagya or that offering by which you can attain the state of yoga with the self. Okay, then it says, then there are another kind of yoga. What is that? Swadhyaya jnana yagyascha. Swa, adhyaya. Swa means self. Adhyaya, here self study. You know, in literally it's called self study. You know, if you go into this you know, this meaning of the word, it's called swadhyaya, means self study. But swadhyaya is not self study. Swadhyaya means, swa means the self, and adhyaya means meditating on the self. Okay, when you meditate on the self, when you contemplate on the self, that is called swadhyaya. Okay, swadhyaya jnana yagyascha, the yagya which you do with jnana, with knowledge, is this swadhyaya, that is meditating in the self. Understand? You know, this people who are in the field of knowledge, they also do yagya. What is that yagya? It's called jnana yagya. Now, what is that jnana yagya? Jnana yagya means when they meditate on the self. That is called jnana yagya. Okay, swadhyaya jnana yagyascha yatata sanshita brataha. By maintaining various, you know, various strict disciplines, by maintaining various strict disciplines, you know, waking up in the morning, in the early morning, waking up. Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
We can hear you, but it's breaking up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, but it's breaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. But
Yep.
we can't, you're not moving, but we've got voice.
Until which part did you hear?
Self-knowledge.
Just come back on.
Okay, so it says Swadhyaya Jnana Yagyascha. Okay? Hello?
Yeah.
Swadhyaya Jnana Yagyascha. That is, people who perform Jnana Yagya. That is, people who perform Yagya through knowledge. People who perform Yagya through knowledge, they perform that Yagya by meditating on the self. Swa Adhaya. That is, Swa means self. Adhaya means meditating. When they meditate on the self, that is the way to become, that is the way to perform Jnana Yagya. Okay? And Yataya Shangshita Brata. They do it by performing various spiritual discipline, by observing various spiritual discipline. Okay? Like waking up in the morning, eating less, becoming vegetarian, chanting of mantras, spending a life of celibacy. These are the various strict principles, these are the various strict disciplines which they practice for Jnana Yagya. Okay? I don't know whether you can hear it or not. I'm sorry today the internet is very, very, very horrible. So let's stop here. What to do? We cannot,
That's good. That's good, Swamiji. It was full of content, as always. Full of content. So it's good. We can stop and let it in.
Thank you. Thank you. I also
guys.
enjoyed a lot.
Yeah, it was really good. Thank you, Swami. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed that.
I love it. Mutual.
Love
So
it.
let's meditate a little bit and then.
Sadhguranath Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Okay, you can do what you